Let's go indeed. Welcome in everybody to another episode of the Strength for Your Purpose podcast. Dr. Phil Finemore here, your host as always. Hope you all have had a fantastic week so far. I know I have. And as promised in last week's episode, we are back to some interviews here. So a little bit of interview hiatus, but coming back with an interview and a really interesting one to kick things off. This was a story that I heard about through a connection of mine, a friend of mine, and said, you know what, this has to come to the podcast here. So this is just right up our alley, right up, right down the alley of what we talk about. It talks a lot about consistent, imperfect action. You all have heard me say that a bajillion times. Guests have said it. It's a theme on the podcast here. So without further ado, I want to introduce this week's guest, and then we're going to really get right into this conversation because it's really intriguing. I am joined this week by Tate Sandrock, and Tate began his Maine adventure in 2019 with his wife, Claire, and 2 young kids, trading the Great Lakes of Wisconsin for the salty shores of midcoast Maine. A former special education teacher and personal fitness trainer, Tate now dedicates his time to assisting buyers and sellers at Newcastle Realty. He is always ready to listen and is enthusiastic about helping others achieve their goals. An avid runner, Tate can be found early in the morning on his favorite route, circling the Great Salt Bay. Tate, thank you so much for taking the time to join me here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is great. Love your energy. Love your show, and feel very blessed to be on and to talk with you and just kind of see where this goes.
Yeah, no, well, thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate that. And so I actually told you, Tate, before we started recording, I only know a little bit about kind of what you're doing here and kind of the real reason I'm having you on the show. And I really want this to be the first time that you and I chat about it. So it's a little bit more organic and people can get the full breadth of the experience here. So you're doing something really cool with a swim streak with your family. And so tell us a little bit about how this got going and what you're doing with this swim streak.
Yeah. Well, this is, really no joke, but we actually just went and jumped in the lake about like 10 minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
My son and I, so today is day 151, 151 days in a row of going in the water. And that's either in the ocean or in fresh water. So we live about like 2 miles from Damascotta Lake, and so that's like our go-to spot. And the interesting thing about it is we just started doing it. I started a little bit ahead of my son, going in the cold water. And then he got on board about a week later, and it was just kind of like, let's just start doing this every day. And I think that's what's really cool about it is we didn't really have like the end in sight, and it was probably better that way. But then we did 10 days, and then I was like, oh, maybe we could get to 20, and then you're thinking, oh, 50 would be cool. And then of course 100, and then my son kind of had 150 as his kind of set point. And we just hit that. And the cool thing about it too is it's been a real bonding thing for my son and I. And he's now the one, at night he's like, Dad, like, we got to go. Like, we got to go swimming. We got to get up to the water. But it's starting to get a little colder. But we really enjoy it. And we always just say afterwards, like, we just feel so refreshed. You don't want to do it. Got a lot of things in life, right? You don't want to do it. You put it off. You procrastinate, and then you do it and you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And actually, I feel great. So yeah, it's just been super positive all around.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic because it really sounds like it started off as something sort of inconspicuous. You just all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're at like 7 to 10 days and you're like, I wonder how long I can go keeping up, almost like a fun little competition with yourself.
Yeah.
You and your son, like how long can we keep this up? But it also sounds like it's really turned into a lot of incredibly valuable lessons for you, but especially for your son. Cause how old is your son?
He's 11. He's about to turn 12.
Yeah, 11 going on 12. So there are some life lessons in here that all of us, regardless of age, probably really need to learn and take and put into practice with what we're trying to achieve and the purpose that we're trying to fulfill in life. But to start getting some of those lessons and maybe not quite being aware of those lessons quite yet at 11 or 12, there's some pretty significant lessons he's learning there.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, I mean, it fits. And actually, we were talking about that. I was talking with my son about it today, like on the drive up to go jump in the water, the idea of the consistency. And I love your idea of like the imperfect action, that, that just the power of consistency. I mean, I think that is such a big thing. And that's come out in this swim streak. And, I think that's a good lesson for all of us. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that really, really caught my intrigue with some of this is not just the consistency, but it's the consistency compared with something that's like so small, right? Something small and achievable, right?
Yeah.
Like you just got to get in some water every day. You don't have to go for, you guys aren't going for a 1 mile swim every day. It doesn't have to be in the ocean. It doesn't have to be at the lake. It doesn't, there's the only structure to it is go get in it, right? Get in it, get out. And even if that's all you do, you've done it. And yeah, the power of that. But when you combine the consistency with just that one small little step and the momentum that brings is pretty significant.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. You're now for you personally, what are some of the things that maybe this has led to in your life personally, professionally, whatever, that maybe you're a little surprised at that I didn't think this was anything more than just being consistent and you're recognizing the power of that consistency, but has it helped transform, change, or shed some new light on some things in your life that you're kind of surprised about after doing this for 151 days?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is like it catches people's attention, right? Like it caught your attention, and to be like, oh, like this it might be interesting to talk to this guy. This is something interesting that he's doing, and a little bit of me has thought about how there's a lot of cool people in Maine. There's a lot of cool people in our communities and where we live. And, I, like many people, I'm sure yourself, listen to a lot of podcasts. And I'll listen to a lot of podcasts of people who, now don't take this the wrong way, who are like famous, big time, right? Like big time podcasts. They're maybe out in LA, New York, and I'm never gonna meet them. Like they do not know I exist, but I still I'm listening to their show on a regular basis. Like I've listened to tons of their podcasts. And so kind of coming back to that, it's just like I was thinking about it's so cool to do a podcast with you because you're a person who I have the potential that we could meet face to face in person. It's like
Sure.
It's made me think about just kind of that more local level, that small level, hey, maybe I should only listen to Maine podcasts or people who are doing cool things in my community, and rather than getting caught up in other people are kind of the big I don't know, just kind of taking it on a local level. There's a lot of great things happening all around us here. We don't need to go far away, and it's probably better for us to like be more active within our community and have more of an impact.
Yeah, I think well, as a local podcaster, yeah, sure, of course I agree with that. No, but, but regardless of that, yeah, I think I think that's a cool little mental pivot to be focusing on uh, being inspired and trying to inspire people that you are more likely to have a connection with and an impact on, right? Like
Yeah.
it's definitely a societal thing where we're putting some of these ultra famous people up on a bit of a pedestal, right? And
Yeah.
we're worshiping them in a way that they probably don't really care one way or another, because as long as they're making their millions, like whatever, think of whatever you want of me, as long as I'm making some money, I guess I really don't care. But yeah, at a local level, having an impact on someone's life directly is gonna spread like wildfire and can have an impact that is way more significant than just fame alone, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. Is there aside from just, some of the camaraderie, doing something cool, hitting that 150 plus with dad, is there anything your son has mentioned about what he is getting out of this, or what he likes about it, that you were also kind of maybe surprised at, or like, geez, I'm really glad he's actually like noticing that about
Yeah.
this whole endeavor?
Yeah. I think another thing that comes up, and it's kind of interesting, these two words very similar, but consistency and then discipline.
Mm.
So like last week, I knew that after school, my son, he had a lot of things going on. It was going to be like very busy from like after school and then dinner. Like the whole day was very full. And so I was like, hey, I think that we should go in the water. I think we should go swimming before school. Like we should get up early and like we'll go up to the lake and get in the water, and then you can come home and like get ready for the day. And he was fully on board. He was like, "Yep, let's do it." So he was up, and we were in the water before 7 o'clock in the morning. Like get up, go up there, and got back home. So it that was cool to see, especially as like an 11-year-old boy who's like hard to get out of bed in the morning,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Yep, that's what we got to do. Like we got to do, otherwise like we're not going to get it in."
Mm.
So that was pretty cool to see that, and that's like kind of the power of that consistency, right? Like you've been working on this thing, and so you don't want it to end. Um,
Mm.
However, at the same time, now I've been thinking about like talking to him about that. It'll be okay, when the streak does end. Like that's
Mm.
gonna happen, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that's also like an interesting conversation. Like
Mm.
that's okay, or maybe we will like miss a day, or then you could really celebrate 151 days, and just and rather than thinking like, oh, it's not good enough if I don't do it for a whole year, like let's celebrate
Mm.
our accomplishment, be happy with that. So that's an upcoming lesson.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's a great point. Actually, that was a point in this that I hadn't actually thought about, which is, yeah, the idea of something else we've talked about here on the podcast, not wins and losses, but wins and lessons.
Yeah,
You're collecting these wins by being consistent, have that discipline. By the way, we need to make a bigger deal out of the fact that by doing this, you got a 12-year-old, almost 12-year-old out of bed early on a school day. Like
yeah,
that alone, parents at home, write this down, right? My kids aren't there yet, but I'm writing it down right now. We need to start doing some sort of streak that these kids are invested in so that I can get
yeah,
them early for school and make the mornings that much easier. But yeah, on top of that, yeah, that lesson about when it is over, it's okay, and how you can even learn from that and grow from that. It actually makes me think. I have a client that has a sign in their office where we do their work that says, win like you've done it before and lose like you loved it. You know, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit. That might be the exact quote. Basically, the idea is that you're okay with losing because you're going to learn from it and grow from it, and win in a way that shows some humility and some dedication to what you do, and some respect, and grow from that as well. So I think that's a fantastic point.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I think with the wins and learning from your lessons, that's kind of made me think about embracing failure. And we have a daughter as well, and that's a lesson that that she's working on right now. And another interesting one that it really is, as annoying as it sounds, it's like failure is when we learn, right? Even though we all like hate it, but it really is, when we learn, and that we should, it's okay. It's more than okay. We need to be more okay with it.
Yeah. And it's totally okay to have that time where you're down and out about that lesson or failure. But I think taking the opportunity to actually reflect on the failure too, and give yourself time to actually learn from it, is incredibly important as well. Yeah. So Tate, what, aside from doing everything you can, within your power to keep the streak going, and as we said, when it ends, it's okay, right? we're gonna learn that lesson. Where are you going from here? Because I feel like this is also a great opportunity. Like I said, you're having an impact on, not just you and your 11, almost 12-year-old, but I'm sure your whole family kind of sees and feels this a little bit too. You're having this impact. You're not only having this impact in your household, you're having this impact kind of within your community by doing stuff like talking on this podcast right now, and things people can learn from this. Where's where are you going to put some of this momentum that you're kind of gaining from this? Like, what do you have other things that maybe you're working on that are going to be impactful for people, or are you just sort of rolling with the punches right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I do love being active and like doing the physical challenges, and I'll set a lot of like really big goals, and sometimes like too big of goals, like and then consistently I don't reach those goals. Like, for example, like I have the dream, like I want to do the Ironman triathlon, and that's like a super hard event. And like I've been saying that for years, like I want to do an Ironman. Like I'm really not getting any closer to doing it. So with that, and kind of with this swim streak, and kind of like how you were saying, starting small, like really maybe working on like forgetting the Ironman thing, but like, hey, I'm gonna get on my bike, just it's like really backing things up, starting a lot smaller, and then we surprise ourselves, rather than setting the goal too big, right? And then just like never reaching it, and just it's like, oh, I didn't do an Ironman again this year, maybe next year, it's like every year. So yeah, we're working on those. Maybe actually, as weird as it sounds, like setting easier goals, right? And just keep crushing those ones, and then before you know it, maybe you'll be getting closer. So yeah, I love doing the physical challenges. I'm super into push-ups as well, and I'll really. I had a goal that I wanted to do 1,000 push-ups in a day, and I've hit that goal. I've actually now hit it numerous times, which is interesting because it used to feel like such a big deal, but now like it's become pretty attainable for me to do 1,000 push-ups in a day, and I really reflect back to when I used to have to do like sets of 10 push-ups, and then it was like, oh, I could do 20 in a row. And then just like over time, power of that consistency, then you're able to do 50 in a row. And you never thought that would like be like, no way, I can never do 50 in a row.
Yeah.
So yeah, our family, we like physical challenges, we like numbers. My daughter, she's the consistency story about being able to do like the best cartwheel, and no joke, she's 8, and she did 1,000 cartwheels like over time, like over like months.
Wow.
And I didn't believe her. I was like, you did not do 1,000 cartwheels. No way. She was like, no, Dad, I did. And I was like, and then she showed me, she had these pieces of paper and she had tally marks like 10 and then like crossed out, like sets of 10, crossed out 100, all the way marked up to 1,000. And so I made sure I was like, this is so cool. And I saved the papers, so I have them in my closet because I'll always hold on to those. And when she's older in life, I'll give those back to her, and of this piece of paper that says 1,000. So
yeah,
I don't think I answered your question, but I told you a good story.
No, you totally did. That's I think that's a good I think a big reason I want to talk to you about this is the lessons we can kind of learn from it. And like you said, you've figured out over time here that those huge goals, it's good to have huge goals that scare you, right? And if you don't reach them in a certain time frame, that's okay. They're still there, but it's a big bite to say, I just really want to go do an Ironman. It's like, how do you get there? Right. You have to have, we've talked about this on the podcast before too. You have to have smaller goals that lead up to your bigger goal, that bigger goal that scares you. So you gotta have a way to get there. And if 151 days of getting in a body of water here in Maine, which is not easy to do because you've braved it in the spring and you're braving it right now in the fall. If that has taught you how to better achieve some of the goals you want to achieve for your next physical challenge, then yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's a great jumping off point for what's next for you. That's awesome. Yeah, great. Well, Tate, before I have 2 more questions I want to ask you. But before I do that, I want I don't know, are you sort of posting updates about where the challenge is at anywhere, like on social media? Like, are there places where people can learn more about that, or maybe learn more about you, or connect with you if they're interested in chatting with you?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question and topic that you bring up, because I'm not big on social media.
Yeah.
And I love interacting with people face to face. And so, and another big thing that I like to do is I really like to write letters, and that's kind of that's a way that I've connected with a lot of people, and kind of a way that I've differentiated myself in the work that I do, and kind of ties into my work as a real estate agent, and just kind of in my career, how I've used letter writing to kind of differentiate myself, to make connections with people. Now, I heard you saying this recently on one of your podcasts, where you were saying that you were really motivated by the feedback that you get, and like people commenting about your podcast, and they're like, oh, I listened to this episode and that was great, and it was inspiring, that you feed off of that, and I can see that. But at the same time, I also heard you jokingly say, I think I'd be doing the podcast anyways, like you naturally enjoy it. So it's win-win, right?
Sure.
Like, you love what you're doing, and then it's also a win to be getting like this positive feedback to fuel that.
Yeah.
That's kind of me. That's me with letter writing. I love doing it. And then people like get a kick out of it. They're like, oh my gosh, like, I got a letter from this guy. This is so cool. So it's win-win.
Yeah.
But that's tying back to the social media that, you know, and like how we were saying, you know, connecting to more local podcasts, connecting in your community.
Mm.
I've tried to like not be on social media, which is hard, right? That's the world we live in. That's how you connect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know you had Nancy Marshall on your podcast, and one of the things that she talks about is kind of embracing both of them, right? Like if you
Mm.
meet somebody on LinkedIn, then try to have coffee with them face to face, and
Mm.
vice versa. Like if you meet someone face to face, then, you know, texting with them is a good use of technology to maintain that relationship.
Sure.
So that's something that I try to be really conscious of in my communication, and not being like overly, you know, using technology and not
Mm.
interacting with people face to face.
Yeah. Yeah. No, fantastic. No, that's great. No, I think, I think we could use a little bit more of that, right? Like to your point, and to our mutual friend Nancy Marshall's point, that's the balance is great. So I think having a little bit more of the non-electronic interaction is fantastic as well. So um awesome. Yeah. And that the letter writing is incredibly powerful. I've done a lot of handwritten stuff as I've started my own business too. And yeah, people really appreciate that. They really do. So that's a good lesson for everyone out there too, is write a little handwritten something instead of shooting the email or the text off and see the response you get. I think it'll be impactful.
Yeah.
Last two questions here, Tate. And you've listened to a bit of the podcast, so you might know what I'm about to ask you, but that's okay. Number one is, what is your definition of strength?
Wow, that's a good one.
Yeah.
You know, again, like obviously, family is important to me, and my son he knew I was going on the podcast tonight, and I love how he was asking questions, and I was like, yeah, the podcast, it's called, you know, Strength for Your Purpose, and I was saying, just kind of explaining that to him, and and that idea of purpose. So like my son, he likes to do art, and I think he's a good artist. So I was like kind of using that as an example, like, yeah, maybe art is your purpose. And then I was explaining what you do professionally, and then my son was like, oh, so you don't have to be like, this podcast isn't all about like exercise, like you don't have to be like a fit person to go on the podcast. I was like, oh, no, like not at all. It's like whatever your purpose is, like whatever you're interested in, that's what's important. He was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I like that, you know, so kind of coming back to your to the strength. I think it's such like an individual thing, and so maybe like kind of breaking it out of like, when I think of strength, like I think of like in the gym, right? But you know, really thinking of that strength is just going to be whatever's important to you and driving you, as long as it's healthy, you know, like I agree, it
Yeah.
should be a healthy strength.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. Yeah, it's definitely more than physical. 100%. 100%. No, and I love that. I love that example that you gave your son. That's fantastic too. That's what we're all about. So that's awesome. And then the final question I have for you, Tate, is, what is your true purpose in life?
Yeah, that is another good one. These are great questions, and some questions we probably should all be you know, asking ourselves more.
Mm.
Um, you know, I think the connection, and inspiring people, like I think it really like, it bums me out to like maybe to see someone who I think maybe isn't happy, or isn't inspired or doesn't feel connected. You know, I want to see like for example, like you're the opposite of that. Like you are like, you're on this podcast. It's like, you know, 8 o'clock at night and you're just like exploding like with energy and enthusiasm. And that's contagious. Right. And when you see the opposite of that, like not to mention any names, but like, I feel like I saw someone today like that and it had such like a negative effect on me. Like, oh gosh. Like, now, of course, people are in difficult situations in life, and life is not easy to, you know, can't be bubbling over with joy every minute of your life. I got that. But, you know, in terms of my purpose, I think would be to trying to like bring out the best with people and you know, kind of increase that energy. I try to be a very highly energetic person and hope that rubs off on the people that I'm around to you know, be energized and have fun and, you know, really embrace life. Just try to be that, to model that. Yeah, and I would say, you know, of course, we all know like life is too short and unexpected things happen, and that kind of, you know, kind of tie that all back around to, it's like, yeah, like go do a swim streak. Why not? Like, you know, maybe you don't know when you're not going to have the time to do that. So
the time or the ability or whatever. Yeah. Fantastic. Awesome. Well, that's great. And I'm glad you know, your swim streak really speaks to not only your swim streak, but also getting it out there and sharing it with people really speaks to what your true purpose is. So, you know, thank you for having that purpose, really, diving into it. No pun intended. And, again, really appreciate your time coming on and talking about this, Tate. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Super fun. And, yeah, I hope other people go out there, and it doesn't have to be a swim streak. And like we were talking about, like do something small, like, hey, it's beautiful in Maine right now, or wherever you are. Like, hey, maybe you're just gonna even just go put the feet in the water, you know, and just like maybe that's it, and that will feel great too.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And for everyone out there listening, watching, thank you so much as well. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. And until next week's episode, go make it a great week. Have a good one, everybody.
Awesome. Jump in.
Jump in. I love it.